Wonder Soul. Wonder Soul.
Wonder Soul.
Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. I appreciate you supporting Wonder Soul and listening to this episode. And I just want to mention this right before we get into this episode. If you'd like to support Wonder Soul on Patreon, there is a link in the description below. I'm telling you guys, that support keeps this podcast going. It makes it more personal to you, the listener. It allows you to personally be one of those extremely cool individuals that makes Wonder Soul what it is, right? And so there's 3 tiers, $1, $3, and $5. Different kinds of benefits like early access, the ability to pick the special Patreon Picks episode, which is coming soon. I'm more than likely going to record that the week of this recording, so I'm going to have that out as soon as possible. More than likely, there'll be 2 episodes this week, but I'm going to do my best to make that happen. If you guys have been paying attention, I started a new job, so that's taken, some of my time. Well, I'm lying, most of my time. So, when it comes to getting these episodes out, I'm trying to stay consistent with it. And, but I'm also really keen on making sure that I'm communicating with people who support on Patreon and making sure that those benefits are worth it. So, you guys let me know. And if you would like to support, the link is in the description below. So shout out to everyone who has been supporting on Patreon. Lou and Kyle. Right, Spydronaut, and so many others. You will get special shout outs in that upcoming Patreon Picks episode. But enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into this week's episode of the podcast. So last week, I hope you guys enjoyed me and Grant's My Hero talk. I really enjoy geeking out about My Hero, obviously. But I also am looking forward to having more guests on in the future. And I do have a couple of people who I've reached out to. And it's really just going to take, getting everything scheduled out. And I'm sure those episodes are going to be really fun. I just have to nail down some dates and see how my schedule looks as well as theirs. And so I'm going to try to keep those pretty consistently involved in the library of this podcast. But yeah, so look forward to those, and I hope you guys enjoyed the last couple episodes and just the vibe. This one is going to be for the fans of the original podcast. Like when I first started doing Wonder Soul, I was really into like Alan Watts and a lot of deep philosophical spiritual type stuff, and I was really going through a lot of different changes in my life, and I was trying to not without taking some L's, and obviously there's been a couple wins as well. That's just life. And during that period of time, though, I was like really keen on talking through those feelings and those experiences using the podcast, and that's like a primary chunk of the subject base. Lately, you probably have been noticing this a lot of anime, manga, video games, that kind of stuff, which is obviously stuff that is really important to me. So I've been enjoying talking about that. But every now and then, I like to sit down and keep it real. But I also am trying to find better ways to express that, right? Because I think there got to be a moment where what I was going through in my life, I just didn't feel like I had any reason or right to tell people different things like that or even express those things. And so I kept them to myself, and I started to express those in different things. And I'll talk about that a little bit when I do the Wonder Sounds episode, when I talk about what goes on with creating those, because that was the Patreon pick episode. And so I'll kind of get into that, how I kind of changed how I wanted to talk about certain subjects or express things, and what medium or platform I use. So, but I will tell you that when I was doing topics like that, it was very therapeutic. It was very healthy for me at least. And the response was really good. I think when you open up about different things, you'll be surprised how many people can relate or have experienced a lot of the things that you have or going through. So I really always encourage people to express how they feel, talk it out. That's how I get through stuff. Like, I have to talk it out. And that really just loosens the tension and all that good stuff. So just even talking about the things I like, not even bad things or sad things or very heavy, deep life things, just talking about things that you want to talk about, things that you're passionate about, things that you enjoy, things that you like to do. I think that's very important, and to find people to have those kind of conversations with, and even if they are a novice or have no idea what you're talking about, but like, I think people can feel the passion radiating off of individuals. I feel like it's a very obvious aura that shrouds them, and it's kind of contagious. And so, like, I've always spoken about how, more than likely, if somebody's passionate enough, like, I will be hooked and they have my attention, and I'm almost curious enough to want to pursue or learn more after we have our conversation. So it doesn't always have to be people that are like really into whatever you're wanting to talk about. So that kind of brings me to the main topic here that I want to go over with you guys and just sit down and chill and talk about. And it kind of all correlates with everything that I just went over. So lately I've been getting back into drawing, and I would say lately, meaning I've been getting into like spurts of drawing over the last couple of years. I can tell you that I remember as early as fourth grade being really into drawing. Like, me and some friends, this is right at the time that I got into Dragon Ball Z, and was racing home, getting off the bus to catch Dragon Ball Z on Toonami, and then, talked about it at school the next day. And we would just draw these characters, and like the merchandise for like Dragon Ball Z was not, at least in my area, wasn't really available. Like, it was very rare to come across something. Like, nowadays you can go into Walmart and it's literally like a Goku cutout, in the electronics or toy section. So it's a lot more mainstream now and accepted. I think it was a very niche thing, and it still can be, but I think it's widely more accepted. So we would draw and cut out our own paper action figures, right? So we're drawing all these characters like Vegeta and Goku. And if you don't know anything about Dragon Ball Z, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And that's okay. If you are curious enough, that's one of the like pillars of my anime fandom, and a huge inspiration for wanting to draw or even practice drawing. So like, I remember back in the day, like there was different friends that I had that some were like really good, like ahead of everyone else with their talent when it came to drawing. And then there's some that were like just not good. Maybe they would get better. I don't know if they continued, but they were just wanting to try it out. And and then you had people that were pretty average, or like, hey, you know what? If you like stuck with this, like you could really develop something to show off and brag about if that's what you wanted to do. But I also remember growing up and thinking that certain things like drawing, I'm trying to search for the right phrase or word, but there was reasons why I felt like letting go of pursuing those types of skills or hobbies or anything. Like, I just think that I kind of left them in this unrealistic void of possibilities where it didn't seem really worth the time to put into it, because it wasn't what we were mostly taught to pursue once you got out into the quote unquote real world, right? And then it's just like, I think in high school, like I've learned since then that I've had a lot of friends that were actually into a lot of these things like anime and video games and stuff, but they weren't really as expressive at that time growing up. Like I feel like whatever, no matter what it is, a lot of things like for me it was like video games and anime and drawing and stuff. Those geeky cool things. I kind of tried to lock them up into my childhood. So as I was getting older, I tried to find fun and pleasure in different ways. And I kind of put those off to the side as though they were things that I shouldn't really give as much time or effort to. Some of that's peer pressure, some of that's just like, societal, expectations and stuff like that. And we'll get back to why, we'll make this all connect, right? So here I am, I'm 30 years old, and I've in the last 4 or 5 years really wanted to give myself permission to learn again how to create things and how to express myself in different ways. And, in those moments, things happen like, the podcast and everything that's come with WNDRSOUL. All the learning that goes into like content, like learning programs, learning how to, just everything fundamentally, just learning so much. And this is one of those few things in my life that I've really committed to. And one of the few things in my life that I've really, at least without sounding cocky, I feel like I've been able to see the progression and growth. Like if you go to listen to a really early episode of the podcast and then you listen to the podcast episodes of recently, they're night and day. There's just a different vibe altogether. I think there's just more confidence and more, and the confidence I would say comes from just knowing your identity, or at least having a stronger foundation of what you want to be and who you think you are. And like I said, when I started doing the podcast, it was in a very, I would say, experimental, transitional time in my life. So, I was kind of opening doors that I hadn't opened before. But then it also led me to opening doors that I had shut, years ago. And, I love art. I'm not like the type that I can appreciate art, but I also will say that, you won't catch me at too many museums, and I can't list you off like without even looking it up, like a handful of artists' names and works and all this other stuff. But I can tell you that I've always enjoyed animation, like growing up, like cartoons, anime, comic books, manga. So much of that visual medium and way of storytelling and expressing yourself was super attractive. And a lot of people plug a lot of that into like, that's your childhood. Like you're into that stuff. It's, very childlike. It's very much the things that you do when you're a kid. So, it's always super intriguing when you see like adults who have made careers out of creating this stuff. Cause these things that people label as for, younger audiences, which a lot of it is honestly geared towards that level. But I feel like you can enjoy so many different things at so many different like areas of your life and ages. So it's kind of wrong to neglect like those things, like to lock them away and go, well, I can't watch that because, I'm an adult now. That I don't think that mentality is really good. Personal opinion. So like, over the last couple of years, I've picked up the pencil. I've tried to, really get back into drawing. I mean, a lot of that comes from, getting back into anime really heavy and starting to read manga, like more than My Hero, which obviously is one of the main motivators, right? But branching out, trying out different stories, different, different art styles, and just all of that is super inspiring to me, right? Like it's very much something that when I ingest it and I enjoy that form of entertainment or that form of escapism, that form of just enjoyment, I instantly feel like I want to do something like that. Like I'm like, oh, that would be so cool. And there's so many of those ideas in our head that are like, oh, that would be so cool to, do that or pursue that. And for most of us, I feel like we just and we tell ourselves no for whatever reason. And we tell ourselves that we can't, and we tell ourselves like, that's not realistic. And, we shouldn't even give that idea any type of energy. And yet, we put so much energy and time into things that are just not satisfying. They're just not as enjoyable, just literally whole careers centered around things that we don't, have a deep interest in, don't care about, don't really enjoy doing, don't look forward to doing, don't look forward to experiencing, really looking forward to when you're not doing it. So there's a lot of lives that are centered around that template, and that's unfortunate. And it's not so much the individual's fault, wholly. I think, life kind of forces us in a lot of ways to have to make certain choices that are difficult, that require sacrificing things that we inherently want, that we're inherently pulled to. And that sucks. It really does. It sucks so much. But I feel like with the rate of how the world is moving and how we can do jobs and, be productive, I think there's a lot of time for us to square away to pursue things that we think will bring us some sort of satisfaction that we're not getting on a daily basis. And this can be so many things, but I'm only going to be able to speak from my experience. And I would love to hear back from you what comes to mind when you think of all this. But, for drawing, and for me, I remember expressing it to some individuals about how it's almost very zen for me to draw nowadays. I remember hearing during the pandemic, people would do this thing called anxiety baking. And people just were so into baking because of the step-by-step process, the ability to just focus on a task, the instant gratification of being able to do all these things and then see the results of what you've done and the reward of it. And so people were really getting into baking. And for me, drawing kind of in some ways is relatable to that. I really hone in on what I'm doing. I feel very satisfied when I can take the image within my own, skull and put it on a piece of paper, because that's really how I draw. I don't do anything digital right now. I think that would be really cool. And, but I really want to practice with pencil and paper, because I want to be able to just wherever, whenever. And, I have a handful so far of sketchbooks that I filled up, and I'm so excited to look back at these years from now and see the progression and to see just what I was into at that time. It's kind of like a visual journal, a visual diary in some ways. So as much as I'm jumping all over the place, there's a lot of points I'm going to try to make, and hopefully I can make them all connect and wrap up by the end of this episode. Because, I really wasn't sure what to talk about. That's going to happen, and you're going to get these kind of episodes. And I can only tell you how I feel. I don't really know a lot. So there's not a lot that I can just get down to business with you and lay it out and make a whole podcast episode out. Cause I wanted to talk about Chainsaw Man, but I just finished that, and I'm just letting that, ride out and marinate in my brain. Plus I want to, sparse out the topics, cause I'm not always going to be talking about, manga and anime and stuff, but that's typically the vibe right now. So I'm just trying to be, provide that variety that I've always boasted about. Right. So So I've just been super inspired. This connects to the whole anime manga and why, watching and reading that has really fueled my motivation for drawing and taking it more serious and really devoting the time and patience to learning the steps necessary to really start at the fundamental basics and suck and yet be able to learn those key skills to eventually be able to do what I want to do and put on paper what I have in my mind without sacrificing anything. Like it is, shade for shade, line for line, exactly what I envisioned in my head. Like that's my goal. And just seeing the art from like Horikoshi, the creator of My Hero, Fujimoto, the creator of Chainsaw Man. Obviously, like Akira Toriyama, growing up with Dragon Ball Z, like that for me was when you said the word anime, the art style that popped up in my head is like any character from like Dragon Quest or Dragon Ball Z, right? But then like I also have inspiration that comes from different mediums within different genres, like just like Western comic books like Marvel and DC. Like I really enjoy those depictions, and I read a ton of comic books growing up, and so obviously that's always been a part of keeping that, I guess, like a kind of a dream, like some kind of dream alive, I guess, like of like being able to replicate that and put something visually, on paper like these other individuals had done. Right. So, Alex Ross, who does a lot of art for like Marvel and DC and so many others, like, man, it is incredible. Look him up, like look up all these. If I name drop anybody and you don't know who I'm talking about, it's okay. But I encourage you to take time during or even after this episode to like check out what they do. Okay. So Alex Ross, Fujimoto, Horikoshi, Akira Toriyama. Did I say Toriyama? Golly, this is why I get so nervous talking about Eastern creators' names and things like that. Akira Toriyama. All right. Moving on to my next point. What I'm trying to get around to saying is that, at least for me personally, there's been a lot of different changes in my life over the last like 5 years, and especially over the last 10, but let's just keep it reasonable. In the last 5 years, been a lot of changes, a lot of things that were forced changes that were not in my control, not my choice at all. And some were ones that I decided to make for myself and for others and other things, right? And I'm in a point right now as I sit down and record this with you where I feel like I've gotten the strongest idea of who I am and what I like and what I don't like, those things. And I'm not even close. That's like a never-ending journey, but I feel very confident now. And where I'm putting my time and energy is really at the foundation of these changes and these choices. And I've had to make some changes that were hard, like we all do, and that required sacrifice of different, levels. I've also had to make changes that made me uncomfortable, that were really difficult, that took a lot out of me. And I feel like that's anybody listening. So one of the important changes that I'm a big advocate for right now, and I swear I'm trying to tie this all in, okay? But you need to change what you put your energy into, who you put your energy into, who you put your time into, what you put your time into. Like, this world is filled with so many possibilities. This life is not forever. This experience is finite. The opportunities may seem endless, but our choices are limited. We have to limit those choices to make sure that we are putting ourselves in a place where we can be healthy and happy. And a lot of the ingredients for that is about the things that you do, the people you do these things with, or the people in your life. And I think those are very vague. But some of the things that I can say from my own experience, though, it's like something like drawing, though I've been so up and down with it. Like, I really feel like I'm very encouraged to want to subtract time and energy from certain things or other things in order to make time and to make that change, so that I can actually get better and enjoy this and make time for something that I really want to make a part of my life, my daily, and a part of me, who I am as a person. And a lot of us want the end results to a lot of our dreams and a lot of our passions and goals and stuff, but we're not willing to make the changes necessary. And I think, like, even in some weird, odd, maybe even spiritual way, like, when you really want something to change, you'll see how everything responds, and timing, and a lot of the events that take place that almost like don't even seem in any way related to something that you're thinking about. But if you look back and you see how these events all proceeded to create different changes and opportunities and different paths for you to end up where you really wanted to be, or where you deserve to be. And so even when it's a lot of crappy, bad, bleak moments, I feel like on the other side of that, there's something. Like, if you really strive for it, if you really want it, you can, if you can get through that, you can find yourself in a lot better place. And it's about making those changes before they're made for you. And some of the ones that are made for you are really working for you. In a way where, have you ever heard of the line of, like, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you deserve or you need. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though in the moment you think this is what you want, but maybe that's not the best thing for you. And maybe it's a good thing you didn't get it. Maybe there's a reason why I didn't, spend my whole life working on certain things, or really investing all of me into. If I had done that, I would have not expanded, my interest and my experiences, because I've like dipped and dabbled and tried so many things. But after a certain point, I think I'm in a moment in my life where I'm feeling like committing to things. Like, I've tried a lot and I'm still going to try. I still want to experience like new things and fall in love with things and hate things, because some things are trying to be like, I do not want to do this ever again. But with drawing and just different things that have always been there, I think I just like danced around them so hard. I kept longing and searching for more that I thought was going to be the end all be all, like the everything. And maybe I had everything all along. It just was scattered and I had to rake it in. And I think like something like drawing and how I want to express myself is just something that I've always gravitated towards. That's something that I've tried to become more present in, is about realizing what I'm naturally pulled to. And that's even with people. Like, if you find yourself naturally wanting to spend time with somebody or be around somebody or interact with somebody, that's a good thing. And if you find yourself doing the opposite, like trying to avoid somebody or don't care if you even, talk to this person ever again, but you seem to be forcing those interactions, maybe you don't. Maybe you need to let go of that. One of the hardest changes that I think that people have to make is letting go. Letting go of the things that they think they need in order to get the things they want. Because you got to make room for it. You have to make room for it. Like, I feel like there's nothing you get without giving. You can't just pick up a pencil and start drawing and be really, really good at it. Like, you have to give it the time. You have to give it the patience, the energy. You have to give it like time. We're not willing. There's so many cool things that people want to do. And I think if you really surveyed and asked everybody why they're not doing it, it's because it was just like they weren't willing to put in the time, or they didn't have the time. And sometimes in life you don't. Sometimes you're just super busy, that the last thing that you can fit in your day is to sit down and draw for 30 minutes. Or even do it enough to or even be in the moment where you're enjoying it, where you're really giving it your undivided attention. So I understand that, 100%. But I feel like, no matter what, life is constantly changing. We're really busy one moment, then we're really free the next. Everything's in flux. Change is constant. It's constantly happening. Nothing stays the same. People are here today, they're gone tomorrow. It's like with a lot of other things, certain phases of your life, certain things that you find yourself really into. It's constantly changing, and I'm glad for it. There's some things that stay the same, but they're never quite the same. That makes sense. They're never exactly the same, because everyone around you is changing, and everything around you is changing. So wouldn't it make sense that you are as well? Or you should, and you shouldn't resist that kind of change? Because not all change is good and fun. It's actually really hard, really hard. And when I feel like you're learning something, you're having to change the way your brain works. You have to change the way you look at things. You have to change the way you perceive things. I think change is at the fundamental base of everything that you want to do. And if you stop to think about it, it all comes back to it. And so I don't know, I hope that by expressing this, that I can hold myself more accountable to sticking with something like drawing. Just actually today got back from Books A Million. I got this, I can draw mangas, step-by-step techniques, characters, and effects. Looks like a really cool book. I'm hoping that I can get something out of it, but at the end of the day, you can have all the how-to books, but you got to actually do it. You actually have to apply it. It's one thing, but it's still nice to have those tools, that information. There's so much information out there. Anyways, I hope I can stick with it. I hope you guys can keep me accountable. I try to post it just to post it, on Twitter, which is a good place to find me and updates of what's going on with the podcast and any content that I'm working on. But I think that's just really what I wanted to talk about. And you can pick it apart, and whatever pieces of it work best for you, let me know. But I will end with this. I think it's so important that if you aren't doing something that you really enjoy, or if you haven't been able to fit time for that, you do so. And if you're not really sure exactly, if you ask yourself, what do I enjoy doing? What do I enjoy? If you haven't really asked yourself that question, to take a moment to do so and really write it down, or, pay attention to the way you feel when you think of something. Your gut will tell you. It's weird. And I know that there's so much out there and things can be so overstimulating, but I feel like in a lot of ways we already know the answers. We just have to declutter that mess, clear off the table, and then find what's underneath it. It's there. You just got to sort through it and make time for that. If it's something you've been really thinking about so long, years maybe. I mean, if it's still there now, wouldn't you be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't, and learn and apply yourself, and don't be afraid to suck. I know 100% that I can do so much better with everything I do. Every podcast episode, every drawing, every wonder sounds, everything that I do every day can be better. I think that's what keeps me motivated, that we I know I have the memories and the experiences of knowing that things can be better. And as long as I know things can be better, then like that's enough to keep moving forward. Because even if it's not where I want it now, I know it can be better. So make time to do things that you enjoy. Make time for the people that you enjoy being around. And yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to sit down and vibe with you guys about, you know, some real life shit. All right. That's just really what it all comes down to. I'm sure we'll get, you know, back into some, you know, specifics and some discussions and conversations here very, very soon in August. I hope you guys had a good July. I know mine was kind of a grind, but I see the fruits of my labor now. And I'm feeling really good. I feel like in a really good space mentally, physically, and like I just said, I know it can be better and it's going to be better. And I hope wherever you are at the time of listening to this episode, that if you are going through a lot, I hope, you know, that you're going to be able to get through this, and other cheesy lines that I could say to you. But, you know, I really am rooting for you. And I know other people are too. So I really hope you can find happiness, whatever that may be, and find people that make you happy. Because as long as you're not hurting nobody, like, do it. At this point, do it. Who cares? Like, don't worry about what other people think. Like, who cares? You'll be surprised how many people, you know, really enjoy the things that you enjoy. I promise you. I know that for a fact now. I've been, you know, as open and as honest as I can be about the things that I feel and the things that I like, and the response has always surprised me and is always so welcoming and so encouraging. So yeah, don't be shy. Anyways, that's going to be this week's episode. Like I said, I am going to be doing a bonus Patreon pick episode, and then after that episode releases, then I'm going to open it up to the Patreon supporters yet again what that episode should be. That's going to be a bonus episode every month. It's available for everyone, but it's only picked by the Patreon, or the Patreon supporters, the patrons. Anyways, thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast. I hope you guys are doing well. Working on volume 17 of Wonder Sounds. I'm very excited about that. So expect that sometime in August. I try to do those monthly if I can. And I'll get more into that in that bonus episode, I'm sure. But yeah, so I'm working on that. And like I said, I started this new job, so that's taken a lot of time and energy, but I'm adjusting, you know, and I'm feeling pretty good. So I hope to sit down and record very soon. And I look forward to all the content coming out in August. So yeah, thank you again for listening. I hope you guys are doing well. Till the next time we talk, do good and take care.
Wonder Soul. Wonder Soul.
Wonder Soul.